What's happening YouTube? It's Jamil from JDS, jacked by JDSB.com. Today I'm gonna talk a bit about clenbuterol side effects, but as if you previously watched my previous video about clenbuterol and GRK2 inhibition, I hope you liked it, and I think that you'll even like it more because I'm gonna address the common side effects of clenbuterol in depth, which, as you might have previously read and listened some gurus, they they prescribe potassium and taurine, and that's all. That's all they think. Just they just tell you to drink your potassium, drink your taurine, don't think about anything else. And today I'm gonna address the hypertrophic and the how to enhance your hypertrophic effects of clenbuterol and how to preserve your health. By the way, I haven't sorry about that, but I haven't figured out and figured out a, a better way to do. This is the best I I have I could have figured out. Again, check my previous videos. Beta 2 agonists do work. There's no doubt about it. Taurine is a great way to deal with cramps. But most people don't realize that clenbuterol depletes your taurine levels also. Also, your cramps might be caused by low potassium. In emergencies, IRs in hospitals, in order to, let's say you have hyperkalemia and they gotta decrease the levels of potassium, they use insulin, glucose infusions, and plus they might use beta 2 agonists. They just increase the sodium potassium pump activity, NAKT ATPase, and your intracellular potassium levels increase, and extracellular, which is for example your serum, your blood, extracellular potassium decreases. Also, you wouldn't want to mess with your electrolyte balance. It is very important because lethal injections most of the time are just pure potassium infusions, which means, let's say convicts, they inject convict with a potassium infusion and his heart cannot beat and he dies in, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes. So because of that, you better be more careful about potassium supplementations. Most of the time it is unnecessary to supplement with pure potassium supplementations. By pure, I mean it's not pure, it's not elemental potassium, I know. But if you're gonna use potassium supplement, I highly recommend salt substitutes, such as salts which you can read that it says it has 50, 60 or 70% less sodium, which means they substitute the 50% of the sodium with potassium. It contains 50 to 50 fashion, 50 to 50 fashion. And, excuse me, and normally you would also supplement with sodium to potassium ratio in 2 to 1. 66.6% of sodium and 33.3% of potassium. That has to be roughly your daily intake. What happened? As I said, the main reason is sodium potassium pump, but there are other ways that we can address and decrease the potassium lowering effect of clenbuterol. And here is how. Beta 1 and beta 2 agonists, they both can decrease the potassium levels, but it is a bit different in beta 1 agonists. As you can see, they do increase the serum angiotensin levels, and consequently it increases the aldosterone. And as you might have previously seen, read, or heard, aldosterone retains sodium, helps you to retain sodium and excrete potassium. Just dump into toilet. You just pee it out. And also, beta 1 agonists increase the cyclic AMP, and as a consequence, cyclic AMP increases the sodium potassium pump activity. By the way, I gotta address that beta 2 agonists, the sodium potassium beta 2 agonists work better in increasing the sodium potassium pump activity. Also, beta 2 agonists, they break down glycogen. That's how they work. They do glycogenolysis. And what happens after glycogenolysis happen? What happens after that, right? What happens is your serum glucose levels increase, and your beta cells produce insulin, and we know that insulin can decrease the sodium, can decrease the potassium levels. As a result, you have increased cellular potassium levels, decreased serum potassium levels, and final results is hypokalemia, which can be detrimental, deadly, and lethal. Keep in mind that taurine has many protective effects on various tissues. And we all know that beta blockers have been prescribed by decades for people with heart diseases or tremors or anxieties, even sometimes. They sometimes prescribe lipophilic beta blockers for people have performance anxiety, right? And non-selective beta blockers can block the clenbuterol's hypertrophic effects. And beta blockers also prevent the myocyte growth that comes from clenbuterol usage. And let's have a common sense, right? If your resting heart rate is over 100, will it helpful you to bulk up? Let's say for females, they have hypercaloric, they are in a hypercaloric diet, but because of their heart is racing, it just won't be helpful for them, and it's it will make them to bulk up even harder because of that. As we've spoken, as I've said previously, renin-angiotensin aldosterone system, activating the system increase the aldosterone, and you can combat it with a selective beta blocker. And also, lipophilic beta blockers can help your sleep problems. One of the most common side effects of beta blockers are nightmares. People have nightmares, they have trouble going into sleep, falling into sleep. But on the contrary to general population, in some diseases such as EDS, which is a connective tissue disease that can have dozens of side effects, including the overactive sympathetic nervous system, and prescribing those population with, let's say, propanolol or metoprolol can help them to fall asleep easier, on the contrary to general population, because the overactive sympathetic nervous system is they just basically they produce more adrenaline because of multiple reasons, and it makes them harder to sleep. They are just constantly, not constantly, but when they are trying to sleep, they are in fight and flight mode. The most important part of this slide is here, as you can see. Most of the time, just almost females use it for hypertrophic purposes. That's what they just females use it for hypertrophic effects. They are the ones who seek hypertrophic results. For males, most of the time, it just doesn't work if they have enough gym experience, muscle mass, etc. We can sum up the non-androgenic pathways for females, such as insulin, growth hormone, clenbuterol, and metformin. You might debate that I might have added SARMs, but in the reality, if you give them enough of SARMs, they will get androgenic side effects. They do bind the androgen receptor still. They do bind to that. Also, it's not a good idea to use clown with growth hormone because of multiple reasons. Imagine that your resting heart rate is racing over 100 BPMs. And on top of that, you just add growth hormone. What's gonna happen? Your collagen content of the heart is going to increase. Even without growth hormone, your collagen content does increase, even without growth hormone. Imagine what growth hormone does. It's anabolic on connective tissue, right? Also, insulin used with growth hormone. Sorry, my bad. Insulin used with clenbuterol. Clenbuterol can possibly make you go hypokalemic, and you inject insulin with it. What's gonna happen? Chances are you're going to hypokalemia. You're just increasing the risk Is there a way to minimize it? Yes. Imagine combining the three. We know that anecdotally we have tens of thousands of, even hundreds of thousands of people who use growth hormone, and most of the time now most of the time isn't enough to stress it. Almost close to 100%, you just don't go hypokalemic because of just growth hormone. It's super, super, super uncommon. I can't stress it enough. But there is a synergistic effect. So by combining two or three compounds, you just have more pronounced effect. So we know that growth hormone, if you look at how it works, it decreases your serum glucose, it makes you insulin resistant, you produce more insulin, and it increases the aldosterone levels. It also upregulates the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. So what's happened? What's gonna happen? You're gonna retain more sodium, right? You're gonna retain more sodium and excrete bit potassium. And imagine adding insulin on top of it. Insulin, as I said, decreases the serum glucose, and it it makes you retain sodium independent of aldosterone in a sense. Hyperinsulinemia does that, and plus it decreases the serum potassium with glucose. And imagine adding clenbuterol on top of it. Like clenbuterol increases the serum glucose, it's one of the most effective way to induce hypokalemia. And when you combine those three, you can get very synergistic effect in a bad way. You will, if you combine those three irresponsibly, oh boy, you're probably going to have life-threatening hypokalemia and electrolyte imbalance. Good luck with that. And let's talk a bit about real-world application, right? Which most people don't tell you, or they tell a bit about as some part of it. And cardioselective beta blockers, they can protect your heart. And also by using a beta 1 specific beta cardioselective beta blocker, you won't block the hypertrophic effects of clenbuterol, while you will unfortunately block the most of let's say 60 to 70% of the fat burning effect of clenbuterol, because your heart won't be racing and your resting calorie expenditure will be less. Also, cardioselective beta blockers can make hypertrophic effects of clenbuterol even superior, because when your heart is not racing, you won't be your calorie expenditure will be less. You will your calorie requirement, daily calorie requirement will be, let's say, couple hundred calories less, so you can adhere to your diet even better. And as a result, as a final result, your the hypertrophic effects of the clenbuterol, your physique results can be superior. Like, you adhere to diet, you combine, you pair a good diet with good exercise program, and plus you have drugs that works, you will have better results. No one can argue. No one can argue with that. And as I said, concomitant use of insulin, growth hormone, and clenbuterol in an irresponsible fashion can kill you. According to your blood work, supplementing it with beta blockers, supplementing it with extra potassium and taurine supplementation can help cramping. That's all. That's the end of this slide. For those who might want to ask, I can say that I didn't add ton of citations in the slide, and also I'm gonna think about recording videos in a different fashion for the and that's all, I guess. Thank you for watching, and till next time, take care. Have a great day. Bye bye.